Hello, Kirk Congdon here with Coldwell Banker Grassroots Realty of Western Nevada County. We're here today with Justin Turner of Goosehead Insurance, and we are addressing the questions that's on everybody's mind in our community about fire insurance. I'd like to begin and just ask you, Justin, how have the recent fires changed the sort of environment for fire insurance in our area, Western Nevada County, Placer County, and beyond?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, with the last 2 years, we've experienced just unprecedented wildfires. First, the Santa Rosa fire in 2017 was just absolutely devastating. And then, of course, Paradise, which we're all familiar with last year, was just devastating as well. I think the economic damage, they say, from that fire actually exceeded the damage from Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, if you can imagine that. So that's the kind of impact that we're dealing with here in California. Just to give you one statistic from one insurance company, and I could waste time and give several of these, but
All right.
AIG, one company in California, for every dollar in premium they took in last year, they paid out $5 in claims. So
That's
companies took it very, very hard last year and in 2017 as well, and as a result, the market is just constricted and tightened drastically.
Tell me the differences between and insurance options between shopping with an insurance broker like yourself at Goosehead or sort of the more name brand companies like Allstate, State Farm, etc.
Yeah, good
What are
question.
the differences?
So there's two different types of ways you can shop for insurance. You can shop for insurance through what's called a captive agent. So captive agents they're agents that when you go to them, they can only offer their product. They cannot offer you other companies' products. So examples of those, the most common ones are going to be your State Farms, Farmers, AAA, Allstate. Those are all considered what are called captive carriers. So if you walk into a AAA office, they're only going to be able to offer you a AAA product. They will not be able to offer you a wide array of products.
Like an insurance broker can.
Exactly. So being on the broker side of things, we are approved with multiple different companies. I think we probably have close to 30 at my company that we use. So we have a wide array of options that we can provide to the consumer. As well as, for difficult situations, being up in the foothills where sometimes it's more challenging to obtain, fire insurance, we have more options than if you were to go to a captive carrier. They're going to be very limited in what they're going to be able to do up here.
I understand. So is there a downside to shopping multiple insurance brokers and or captive insurers simultaneously at the same time?
No, not at all. It's not, it's different. It's not like, shopping for cars and credit cards and stuff. It doesn't affect like a score or anything for you. You can get as many quotes as you like from as many different places as you like, and it doesn't negatively impact you at all.
Not at all. All right then. So my understanding is that insurance companies have sort of a pre-assigned fire risk rating for every property. I believe you've called it a fire line. Can you explain that?
Yes. So various companies have different methodologies as far as determining the level of fire risk. The most common one that most companies use is a system called Fireline Score. So Fireline Score is an algorithm that was developed by a company that assesses the probability or the likelihood or the risk of certain areas suffering from wildfire. So the higher that score is, the less likely you're going to be able to get a traditional policy, and a lot of times you end up having to go with more of a specialty plan in that situation.
I see. Is there another rating system that works in conjunction with the Fireline Score? I believe you mentioned that before.
Yeah, so we also have, there's also what's called Protection Class. So Protection Class is a score of 1 to 10, and it assesses your local fire department. It also takes into account the distance that you are to your local fire department. And then also whether or not you're within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant. So that 1,000 feet figure is a pretty important figure. The fire truck carries 1,000 foot of hose on the truck. So if you're within 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant, your home is on fire, they can connect the hose to the fire hydrant, they can connect it to the truck, have a continual pressurized water source to be able to fight the fire.
I see. Is there a way that a homeowner or a potential home buyer can learn what the fire line rating is, or the protection class rating is on an individual property on their own online, or do they need to call an insurance broker?
I mean, the easiest way is to call an insurance broker because we can just assess that in a matter of minutes. But there are tools online that you could probably Google and figure that out. I know there's websites you can determine, the distance and stuff to the fire hydrant and fire station just by typing in your address and stuff.
I see.
So that helps. So for potential home buyers and stuff, I mean, that's definitely an important thing to look at when you're looking at property and stuff. It's like, oh, was there a fire hydrant there in the neighborhood when we were driving by? If so, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be able to get traditional insurance like you're used to, but you're not going to get something that's completely outlandish at the same time, just insanely expensive. So that helps keep the cost down a lot.
But different insurance carriers look at these same ratings not always in the same way. They look at them differently. They might classify the risk differently internally.
Correct. So I always like to say, one of my favorite sayings is, not all insurance companies have the same appetite for the same risk. Every insurance company looks at situations a little bit differently. We have companies that we're using that are extremely conservative right now, and they won't even take things in, a major metropolitan area in some situations, which is just crazy to me. But it is kind of what's going on in the market. But then you have other companies that are much more lenient and willing to take more moderate risk and things like that. So it does vary company to company. So that's one of the advantages of, going a direction where you can utilize somebody that has a wide array of product and stuff like that to be able to,
all right,
navigate through that.
Is there anything an individual homeowner can do to reduce or mitigate their fire insurance premiums by creating more defensible space on their property or other factors?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, one of the main things you can do, it doesn't necessarily affect your premiums per se, but it does make sure that your property is eligible to be insured. Especially up here in the foothills, tree issues are a big common problem. So, if you have trees or branches that are close to the house or overhanging on the roof, it's good to have those trees limbed. And make sure that if there's anything touching the house or extremely close to the house, you might want to consider having that tree removed. So those are going to be important things that insurance companies look at during the inspection process.
I see.
So even they quote you a certain rate, but they will do an inspection after the policy is set up, and those are potential issues that you could run into afterwards that might cause you to have to fix or remedy those items.
And how about if your home or future home is located in a FireWise community? How does that affect this? I forgot what the assessment risk that you called in proximity to fire hydrants and working with fire departments. Can that affect your insurance premium?
Yeah, depending on what company or carrier we put you with, some do give you discounts for being in a FireWise community, so that does help. Generally, when you're in a FireWise community, though, you also, I've yet to find a FireWise community that doesn't have a fire hydrant within 1,000 feet. I mean, I could be proven wrong, but all the ones that I've run into so far usually have that. So you're going to have the infrastructure set up within that community that's going to help keep your rates down a little bit further as well.
So there is value if you live in a neighborhood and you can create a FireWise community and coordinate that with local fire departments. There may be value in that.
And some carriers that we use, if you are in a FireWise community, that we could actually look that up online and validate that pretty easily, and you do get discounts on your insurance for that.
I see. Let's talk about what everybody's talking about, and that's the California Fair Plan as a alternative for insurance.
Okay.
Can you explain that a bit more, what that's all about?
Yeah, so California Fair Plan's been around for a number of years. There are a lot of misconceptions about the California Fair Plan.
All right.
So California Fair Plan, the purpose of California Fair Plan when they came out was really to be a sort of a safety net, kind of a last resort, so to speak, for people that couldn't get a normal insurance policy. So several years when they came out, California Fair Plans were available, and you'd see some people that would have these plans, but not nearly as common or prevalent as they are today. But the California Fair Plan will only cover you for three things. So people need to be aware of this because it's important. So California Fair Plan will cover you for fire, it covers you for wind and storm damage, and it covers you for vandalism. So those are the only three things that plan will cover you for. So what normally we will do is, if we do have to set up a California Fair Plan, is we use what's called a second policy. There's different terms for it.
All right.
You can either call it a wraparound, or it's a difference in conditions policy. So that second policy will cover you for all the other normal things a traditional home insurance policy would cover you for, with the exception of those three main items. So when you do combine the two together, it functions as one normal policy would. If you do have somebody that only has California Fair Plan, then yes, they're leaving themselves with big gaps of coverage, and they're going to be very, very underinsured.
How does the California Fair Plan compare to, and I've forgotten the term now, but insurance companies, I'll just throw out Lloyd's of London. Rate-wise, how does that compare?
Generally, from what I'm pricing out different options, Lloyd's is generally coming in quite a bit higher compared to a California Fair Plan policy with the second difference in conditions policy that we attach to it. And there's one main difference, when you're using a Lloyd's of London. Now, Lloyd's of London's they're a big company. They used to insure ships coming to America back in the 1600s. They've been around a long time. I think they're pretty financially stable, but there are a lot of non-admitted carriers in California.
That's the term I was looking for, non-admitted.
Yeah, so you have two types of companies in California that offer home insurance. You got what's called admitted carriers, which are regulated by the California Department of Insurance, and you have non-admitted carriers that are not regulated by the California Department of Insurance.
Okay.
So what happens is California Insurance Guarantee Association provides a safety net for claims in California. So as long as you're using an admitted carrier in California, and that carrier for whatever reason goes bankrupt or insolvent, which we actually saw a few of those situations happen in Paradise, California will step in and provide a safety net and make sure any outstanding claims are paid out. Non-admitted, that's a different story. You're entirely on your own in that situation.
I see. Is there anything else you can think of that's important for future home owners to know about, or current homeowners? Lots of people are getting non-renewal notices and cancellation notices. What advice might you give them on how to proceed?
Well, I'd say, start early. Don't wait till the last minute when they're shopping. A lot of people, sometimes I get calls a week before their policies are up for renewal and stuff. And, it's good to get a little bit ahead of it too. And then that way, at least they're aware of it and they can kind of plan for it. A lot of carriers, almost every major carrier, unfortunately, is non-renewing homeowners in California, especially Northern California. So as soon as you get that non-renewal notice, start looking around, start shopping. And I would encourage people to, if you're with a captive carrier, start looking at different broker options that have multiple outlets that might be able to do a better job of kind of fitting this particular situation or need for you versus going with a captive option.
Isn't there like a non-renewal notification time period that they're required to give you? Something like 45 days, they must give you that much notice?
Yes. So, and a lot of times people are notified before. So, it's depending on companies sometimes release lists and stuff. They'll tell you, hey, they might not send you a notice officially in the mail until 45 days before, but a lot of times people will find out even further in advance.
All right.
If you are in an area where you are considered, moderate to higher risk fire area, it might be a good idea to just give your agent a call and see, hey, have you heard, am I going to be renewed next year, or is there going to be an issue that might be coming up? So that way you can kind of be prepared and stuff for it.
All right, thank you. So I just want to give a little bit of a historical perspective here as we close up this interview. Years ago, we had the famous 49er fire here in Western Nevada County. And at that time frame, something very similar happened where there were increased premiums for a period of time and a lot of concern over it. And after a few years of a lack of big fire events, let alone mega fires, rates sort of returned to normal. Now, it's hard to speculate whether that will happen again or not, but it very well may. And at the same time, something else, if there's a positive that's coming out of all of this, is seeing the heightened awareness to protect our communities and our homes, and people creating defensible spaces and working together to make this a safer community for all of us to live in. So if you have any questions, feel free to call Justin. His contact information and his email will be in the body of this email, and as mine will as well. And we're happy to have brought you this information and hope it's useful. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.